The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. We're very pleased this evening to be joined by the director of Wittman Regional Airport, a gentleman who's been around here for a few years, a couple years doing an assistant directorship or whatever, right. and then just the last 2 years, the most recent 2 years as the actual director. Peter Moll is joining us tonight. We're very pleased to have him here. It's the first time that you're here, but we hope it won't be the last. So we're going to treat you kind.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
It's the Christmas season.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's our gift to be kind this week.
It is.
I guess, the first thing that we wanted to talk about and the main reason that we invited you here is, for years the airport's kind of gotten a bad rap, know. It doesn't earn money. It's a loser for the county. It's this, it's that. And that's really not the case at all. And recently you held 2 public sessions, kind of informational sessions out at the airport to, I guess, basically to let people know what it is you do and who you serve and the businesses that are out there. And so we want to talk about that because, a lot of people maybe didn't get to go out there. How well attended were they?
Well, it was a little bit less attended than we thought it would be. We were hoping for about 35 to 40 people per session. We ended up with 25 the first night and 15 the second night. I think weather had something to do with that because there was snow both days, unfortunately.
It's been a bad time of year so far, and we haven't even officially started winter yet as we're taping this.
Exactly. So, it's been a tough one, but we're doing well, and tenants are happy so far, and doing great.
Well, so obviously there's a lot of folks who didn't go. So
let's tell them.
Tell them all about what's happening at the airport.
So let's talk about what kinds of things did you share with people that night?
Well, basically, we started off telling people that, like you said, the airport is not a losing proposition. We're providing a lot of economic impact to the Oshkosh community and also to Winnebago County. We take in about $1.5 million in revenue in a year just from the airport alone from the tenants. We also pay out, though, in property taxes, several $1 million from the businesses that operate at the airport. We pay the city of Oshkosh $130,000 a year in stormwater runoff charges from the runways, taxiways, and the terminal ramp. But yet, there's over 300 people that are employed on the airport. That includes EA, each of the other commercial tenants. Some of these tenants have 2 or 3 employees and upwards up to hundreds of employees. So by no means are we sitting here losing money.
You're probably the county's best kept secret.
Exactly.
I want to clarify something. You said you employ upwards of 300 people at the airport, not the county, but that's how many people are employed there. And that's with EAA, you said?
That's correct,
okay.
yes.
So all of EAA's staff is included in that?
That is, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Now you look at businesses like Basler Flight Service, Orion Flight Services are 2 FBOs, and they've got staffs of maybe 15 to 20 people each. Basler Turbo Conversions, which manufactures DC-3s from the old radial engines into new turbine engines, they've got quite a staff. From what I understand, I thought it was 50 or so. It may not seem significant, but when you see what they do and the work they accomplish, it's tremendous.
Sure.
These aircraft are leaving Oshkosh and going internationally. They have aircraft in Afghanistan now. They have them in South America, Central America, Africa, the South Pole. They just recently have an aircraft that was delivered down there and is doing business down there.
These are all the DC-3s?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was told that was one of the safest planes ever made. Is that?
It is.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why so many of them are still flying.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with them. They just they'll go on forever as long as they continue to be remanufactured. There's no reason why they can't keep going on.
Sure. Now, you're real close to Oshkosh Truck out there, or
Correct.
now it's just the Oshkosh Corporation, I
Corporation, yeah.
guess. But, you know, for those of us townies, it'll always be
That's
Truck.
right.
It'll always be Oshkosh Truck. You know, I would assume that the location of them in conjunction with you, you're probably getting a fair amount of business from them, I would assume.
We are indeed. One of the best kept secrets is that they do a lot of truck testing on the airport, and we get revenue from them for that.
On the runways they do?
Actually,
or?
on the taxiways.
Okay,
Yeah, we
all
usually don't let them go out on the runways, but
Okay.
there's taxiways we let them use that aren't being used by aircraft. So they can do brake testing, they do sound and noise testing. When the ARF trucks, the airport rescue and firefighting vehicles, are due for delivery, they'll actually go out there, do pump tests, pump some water through it, make sure that it's operating correctly as it should. They've done circle testing on our terminal ramp, where they'll drive the truck in a circle and continue to pump. And it's fun to watch.
I bet, I
And-
bet.
And lately now, and if anybody's been to the east side of the airport, they'll notice that there's probably about 1,500 trucks from the military. Those are all now the property of the U.S. government. They're being stored on the airport grounds until they can take delivery of them, because Oshkosh Corporation also ran out of room on their facilities for that storage. So that also provides a source of revenue for us.
Okay. Well, I think we want to talk a little bit, don't we, about the various types of businesses that
Yes.
you have out there.
And the renovation that was talked about for the
Yep,
main terminal,
yep.
we want to talk about that?
Yeah, we'll get to that, because that has to do with a business that may be coming in
Sure.
at some point in the future. And before we jump over to that, why don't we talk about what we have there currently? I mean, is it the cab service that comes out of there, or is it Greyhound?
Greyhound
Okay,
bus service.
Greyhound.
Greyhound has their terminal in the
Okay.
airport terminal, so I guess
Yeah.
you can
Okay.
call that. Hertz Rent-A-Car also has an office there, and they do a very good business all year round. You know, a lot of people think they're just here for EA when they bring in 300 cars or so. It's not quite true. They're busy all year round, so a lot of good business from there. And Destination Driving School is also located in the airport terminal, in
Okay.
addition to our administration offices. So.
Okay. And then what other types of businesses are out there? You mentioned Basler, who's been around forever.
That's right.
Orion Flight
Orion
Services.
Flight Services, yeah.
You know, tell us about these businesses and what they do.
Well, let me start with Orion. They're the newest FBO on the airport. They came in the early 2000 era. They provide, besides the basic flight instruction and aircraft maintenance, they also provide charters. A lot of people don't know what they're doing. They've got about 5 aircraft that they're leasing from individuals or other corporations. They'll fly passengers to their business destinations, sometimes for personal use. It's great. Oshkosh Corporation has their fleet based there as well too. So the aircraft going in and out of there are almost 24 hours a day sometimes. We have
Wow.
aircraft.
Interesting.
Greyhound doesn't have people inside anymore, do they? You just buy the ticket on the bus?
No, actually, they do have one.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they do have a terminal manager,
Okay,
and she's there 7 days a week.
okay.
So
I don't know where I got that. I dropped someone off. and-
occasionally, at times, if the station manager isn't there, the only way to get a ticket is to get on the bus and at the next station get.
Okay, that's what I must have
down the
observed
line,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because their hours on the weekends are shortened,
Yeah.
just to give a little time off for that.
Can you give us a sense of the size in terms of how many acres?
Sure.
That's another misunderstanding. I think it's pretty big, isn't it?
It's 1,400 acres plus.
Okay,
And
that's big.
That's a lot of grass.
Yeah.
If you want to get down to nitty gritty, there's 7.5 million square feet of concrete and asphalt.
Okay.
No wonder
So-
you're paying that in stormwater
That's
runoff.
right. That's right. And that's a lot to plow in the wintertime.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And you have a new tower, right?
We have a new control
Yeah,
tower.
yeah.
That was fully funded by the FAA.
Right.
It was a $7.5 million project, and we're still working all the little bugs out of it right now.
Uh-huh.
Really?
But yeah, there's
Like what
there's a
kinds
few.
of things?
Well, not to pick on some of the design work, but they're having issues right now with keeping the equipment room cooler because of all the radios and whatnot that generate heat. They want to keep it cool, and they're having difficulty doing that. Other than that, it's just some minor little things like keys not working in a certain lock.
That's important.
Now, are these federal employees in the
No, these are contract.
These
There's contract contract ATC
Okay.
employees. It's Midwest ATC Services out of Kansas City, I believe.
Okay.
There's 5 controllers that work out of there. They do rotating shifts. Generally, there's 1 to 2 people in the tower from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m.
Okay.
So
So from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. there's nothing there.
there's nothing there. If a pilot wants to, you can still use the airport at
Okay.
night. What you do is you get on the control tower frequency,
Okay.
just broadcast your intentions that you want to land or take off. If there are any other aircraft in the area, they'll respond, and then you can turn on the runway lights by your radio.
Oh,
So-
wow.
All the magic of science.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I think the tower looks really nice.
Oh, it does.
You
Yeah.
know, compared to what we had in the past, although that tower served us well for as long as I can remember.
Sure.
I think it was there from the time I was a kid on. You know, some people in the community said, we don't need a tower. What do we need a tower for? Blah, blah, blah. Explain, if you would, Peter, why it was necessary.
Sure. The existing control tower, as you probably are well aware, that it was moved from its previous location up near Basler Flight Service all the way back to its current location in 1967. And it was built on a hill, basically. They put the foundation in, steel beams across, and then moved the tower right on top of that and just dropped it down. Some of those steel beams are starting to fail now. There's a lot of corrosion, stress on that building. The heating and ventilation systems are not up to code anymore. It's for us as the owners, it's been a nightmare for the last few years trying to keep them going, and to spend a lot of money on it just didn't seem feasible. So electricity is another issue, and then especially during EA, when you try to put about 15 to 16, sometimes 20 controllers up in that small little cab, it got a little crowded, it got hot. That's why they always brought in separate air conditioning units just for the cab alone.
Has this new tower gone through a season with EAA?
Yes,
or-
it has.
It
Actually,
has, okay.
yeah. July 1st we commissioned it, so we kind of worked most of the bugs out prior to that time, and then they worked during EA. The controllers, the FAA controllers, then come in during that week and operate it.
Okay.
They loved it, and not a disparaging word from any of them. It was great. They loved it. So.
Okay, good.
What's the statistics on EAA in terms of planes? Can you give us sort of a...
Sure. Usually there's about, average about 12,000 aircraft on the field.
Okay.
And throughout the week there's about 21,000 aircraft operations. So that means a takeoff or a landing.
Okay.
You know, there's some guys who will go out in the morning, go fly, come back. There are people that come and go throughout the week. And some that stay for the whole week, you know, fly in, leave at the end. And that's an interesting point you should bring up, because Wittman Airport last year had 86,000 aircraft, I'm sorry, 68,000 aircraft operations throughout the year. You take away that 21,000, that's still a significant number of aircraft that use the airport. We had more aircraft operations than Appleton did. So when people say that nothing happens out at Wittman Airport, I give them that statistic and they're like, wow, didn't know that.
Well, and that was why we thought it would be great to have you on, because I just, you know, I personally get tired, and I don't know if you hear this from people, Dan, but I personally get tired of hearing the airport bashed all the time. I mean, sure, it'd be great to have a commercial passenger service out there, you know. I was probably, you know, one of the people who flew one of the last flights out of there when they still had, well, first they had Braniff. Well, I don't know if Braniff came first and then Republic, or if it was Republic and then Braniff, but, you know, I flew out of there a number of times, and it'd be nice to have that.
Sure.
But, you know.
With the airline economics the way they are, you know, we don't see it as really feasible anymore. They're ever going to come back. I mean, there's a war right now. Most people don't know it, between Appleton and Green Bay as to who's going to get the most airline service. You know, they kind of go back and forth. Appleton has 4 airlines. I think Green Bay probably has about the same. But, you know, with proximity to Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, a lot of people still drive to Milwaukee because the airfares are cheaper. And when you consider all the costs of driving, parking your car, it's still, unfortunately, it is cheaper to drive to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And sometimes drive to Chicago because it's even cheaper than that, right?
When you fly Southwest, yes, absolutely.
So,
Of course, then you pay for those parking fees in Chicago.
Well, you find a friend in Chicago and you park
There you
there.
Absolutely.
Take a cab.
Right.
Well, and it's, I mean, it's interesting that Appleton and Green Bay are kind of fighting over who's going to have the most, because Appleton has just, you know, in the last probably couple years started undertaking this huge expansion project.
That's right. Yep.
You know, so.
Yeah, they've done very well for themselves at the airport. And if you think back to the history, if you recall, in the 60s, there was that movement to consider a central airport between Appleton and Oshkosh. you
Yep,
know.
yep.
And for reasons maybe it's hard to explain sometimes, but we got what we got, they got what they got, and here we are. And we're
Well,
and both doing well. And
well,
I guess we could put
precisely.
it that way.
Yeah. Well, you know, things change
Right.
over time.
Exactly.
You know, you guys have made lemonade out of lemons, if you will.
Right.
And it's no different than our former mall downtown.
Right.
You know, it was a great mall in its day, and it's a shame that it couldn't be anymore. But they've done wonderful things with turning that into a business type center.
Exactly.
And it's still a bustling place, and it's still providing a service to the community. Maybe not in the same way that it once was.
True.
But still, it's providing a service and jobs.
Exactly.
So.
Is there anything out there that you could attract to come now? I think Appleton has FedEx.
Correct. Yes.
Are there little nuggets like that this would be a good place to come?
Yeah, there are. I mean, one of the things we're looking at are the light sport aircraft.
Okay.
That's a whole new movement that started several years ago, where it's up to 2 passengers. It's a very light aircraft. You know, the range is limited, and the weight on the aircraft is limited. But we've got 2 aircraft manufacturers already on the airport doing that. Sonics was the first one. They were doing it actually before the light sport aircraft movement started. They just kind of melded into it. Now we also have Eagle Aviation, LLC, which is on the north end of the airport, and they're manufacturing an aircraft, a 2-seat aircraft in that category. They don't get a lot of publicity, and they would like more. That's why I'm giving the plug
There
right
you
now.
go.
Sure. No, it's good.
So, you know, and they're selling aircraft, you know, in the economy the way it is today. In fact, this is interesting. This came out at the Airport 101 class, and we did a tour of Sonics. Their aircraft, the kits, and they don't sell the whole aircraft. They sell it as a kit. You finish it yourself. But, you know, the way they're priced, you know, a new Cessna aircraft coming off the line, people are stopping their orders and buying their aircraft. They said, we can do it a lot cheaper. So they're not doing as badly as a lot of other aircraft manufacturers are. So.
Well, Sonics also, I did an article on this for a magazine a few years back. Sonics also sells these kits to different schools
Correct.
around the country.
Correct.
And, you know, you might think, well, geez, you know, what school is in the market to build an aircraft? You know, but there are schools out there that is one of their projects.
Sure.
that they
Think of
do.
it, you know, in the old days we had the shop classes where you bend metal and you do a lot of woodworking. Well, this way kids can actually see something tangible when they're finished. Say, hey, this thing can actually fly. They can do the electrical work. They can install the engine, do sheet metal work in the process. Upholstery, they can do a lot of different things with it. And like I said, the finished product is something they can be proud of. They can see actually in the air. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know. And maybe hook them on to a future aviation career then too, as a pilot, mechanic, or anything in between.
Or airport director.
Or airport director.
Airport
Yes,
director.
absolutely.
You just never know,
That's
right?
right.
You had mentioned a couple other companies, like, for example, what exactly does Orion Flight Services do?
Well, they're what we call an FBO, fixed base operator.
Okay.
Way back in the old days of the 1920s and 30s, aircraft mechanics would go from town to town and fix airplanes. When they finally established a building, that was called fixed base operator. People would come to them, so that's what they do.
Okay.
Like I said, they do flight instruction, they do aircraft management, they do charter work, they do 100 other things too. They'll manage your aircraft for you if you want to buy an aircraft but want to lease it, have it leased out for use, they can do that for that.
Wow. And so if you want to learn how to fly, they're the go-to people?
Well, actually, there's several on the airport.
Okay.
Then Basler Flight Service itself also gives flight instruction. Then there's Aviation Services, Steve and Nancy Davis. They're on the east
Okay.
side. And then there's obviously Fox Valley Technical College on the south end of the airport. And they've got a full-fledged flying program where You can work your way from your private all the way up to your commercial, your instrument,
Okay.
and your hopefully become an airline pilot in the end.
Is there a service out there, Peter, that, and I'm not sure, so that's why I'm asking the question. You know, in some communities, you can, and they're usually in bigger populated areas, and more scenic. But do you have any type of business out there that will give you an airplane ride or a
Actually-
helicopter ride?
Actually, Orion Flight Services does that.
They do it all.
They do it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, there's a banner out on 20th Street in front of the airport that says airplane rides here. And I think, and then I think there's a phone number attached, but people drive in off the street, you know, for a half hour, 45 minutes, up to an hour. They'll take you on a certain route around the Fox Valley area. Or if you want to go visit your house, I suppose they'll probably take you over there. If you want to see what that looks like and make sure your roof's intact.
You can actually see that on the internet these days.
I see that, yeah.
But no, you know, because I know out west, like, you know, over the mountains and over the Grand Canyon and so forth, that's a real popular thing. And
Sure.
in California, over the ocean and so forth.
Right.
So it's nice, and I would assume they take you not just over Lake Winnebago, but maybe even Lake Michigan, or
They may go as far as that.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but it's certainly worth the asking.
okay.
I want to ask about fuel price. Today, a barrel of oil closed at $37. I think it was a 4.5-year low.
Okay.
When oil was $1.50 a barrel, what was fuel oil, and what is it now?
Oh boy. Let me put it this way. Aviation fuel is more expensive than your auto fuel.
To begin with.
To begin with,
Okay.
because it's manufactured in smaller quantities.
Okay.
You know, it's one of those market things.
Okay.
So, running, when I first started, I would say it was probably around $2 a gallon.
Okay.
It spiked as high as $6 a gallon.
Okay.
You know, and you can see where that a lot of people have said, you know, maybe I don't want to go flying today because it's a little expensive. It's starting to come down again now,
Okay.
back in the $3 to $4 range. So,
Okay.
but when you think about flying versus driving a car, you're going in a straight line in an airplane, so you're getting better fuel economy in an airplane than you are with a car. So,
Want to ask another question. This is a dumb baseball question because it's so darn cold out. But there was a controversy this past year about someone wanting access near the airport to baseball.
yes.
What was that issue and how has it been resolved?
Okay. The Oshkosh Youth Baseball proposed a 10-diamond complex southwest of the airport near the intersection of 26 and the frontage road.
Okay.
They obviously through the zoning, they had to come to us or to the county board to state their case, because that really is under the flyby pattern for the north-south runway. Obviously, we have concerns
Sure.
because that isn't a flyby pattern. In the end, they were given permission
Okay.
to
That's what I
establish
thought,
a
but I
baseball
wasn't
diamond.
sure. Yeah, okay.
So, we wish them well.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Diamond's not built yet?
Not yet. No,
No.
I believe they're starting in the spring.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a big baseball fan too.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
I love the sport too.
Sure.
Yeah, but I just don't want to see
No, I
an
understand.
accident happen.
Yeah. But that's been resolved amicably?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
How would being in the flyby pattern, Peter, cause a problem?
Well, we're always thinking of safety when it comes to the airport. When we give you an analogy, when we have a runway, even there's a certain distance off the side of the runway we call a runway safety area, that where there's supposed to be no objects other than the runway or taxiway lights or any other frangible things like guidance signs. It's the same with an airport. There's certain areas where we want to keep as clear as possible in case there's an engine failure on an airplane, loss of control. The airplane may have to set down. That's why you see a lot of open fields around airports. If you have an engine failure or loss of control, sometimes you pick a spot, it may not come down there. And that was our concern, that may come down in the baseball diamond during a game. There's actually a good video on YouTube where there's an aircraft that comes into a baseball diamond up in Alaska during a game. It's pretty scary.
Well, here in town, we've, and you probably remember this, I mean, you might too, Dan, because you've been here for a while now, but during EAA, probably about 10 or 11 years ago, I think, we had a plane come down right on Doty Street.
Yes.
Yeah, I was there. That was, yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and boy, what a horrifying
Yeah.
experience that must have been for
Exactly.
those folks there.
Sure.
You know, and then you hear about situations like where that plane came down, where was it, California
San
last
Diego,
week?
I think. And
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so,
And unfortunately, it happens,
Yeah. It
and,
does.
and you don't know when or where.
right.
That's
right.
why we try to establish these zoning laws and,
Mhm.
and
Sure.
establish purposes for those. You know, there are certain uses for those
Sure.
zoning areas, but you know, we do our best.
Sure. Well, with time quickly running out here, let's talk a little bit about you know, this new business
Yeah,
that
sure.
is potentially going to be coming to the airport. It is called Wealthy Educators for Aviators. Now, I don't know what
Oh,
that means,
oh,
but
so-
it sounds like they got money.
Well, it's actually wealth management for aviators.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
So-
the newspaper had it wrong then.
No,
You know, what can I say?
Right.
I got it from there.
Yeah.
But they're looking at renting some office space out there,
Correct.
which if they do, it's going to require some renovations and so forth.
Right.
Do you know at all what these folks do?
You're right. They're actually in the financial planning business, and they target the aviation community, both the husband and wife. It's Bob Warner and Noel Marshall.
Okay.
They're targeting the aviation community because they're aviators themselves. They're doing, you know, like I said, financial planning. They're doing you know, life insurance, health insurance, that sort of business. So,
Mhm.
and they're hoping obviously the customers will fly in to them, get out of the airplane, go speak with them, and they're looking at some other forums during the week for even non-aviators if they're interested on building wealth, you know, keeping the wealth you have.
Okay.
So,
Is their coming here contingent upon the renovations being approved by the county board?
I don't believe so. I
Okay.
mean, right now I believe they're working out of their home.
Okay.
But as they said to us, the ability to have the Wittman name on the business card
Sure.
speaks volumes to them. You know, it's just a great experience that you can say, I'm going to the airport, I'm going to fly into Wittman Airport, and that way
Sure.
I can do my financial
Sure.
planning with my financial planners.
So if they do come out there, it's going to require possibly some renovations.
Correct.
Looking at what here, about $50,000? Is that?
Right, yeah. It's what they're looking for is about 1,000 square feet of office space, and if you look at the airport terminal, it's really designed as an airport terminal. We have counter space for the airlines, and there's a baggage makeup area, and there's a baggage claim area, and across the hall, where there's 30-foot ceilings, there's the rent-a-car counters. But you know, for us to have that kind of office space, we'd have to renovate some of those former airline areas. Our best option, we thought, was that we renovate the western portion of the gate hold area where the airlines used to go, make that into the airport administration office, so we'll have access to the ramp more readily,
Sure.
and then let them lease out our space upstairs in the airport terminal. So it's, you know, I've heard people say, well, how can you renovate the whole terminal for $50,000? Like, no, it's not the whole terminal, it's just 1,500 square feet
Sure.
of little space here. But
Well, but it's nice to know that they still might come out there even
Right.
without the renovations.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that might be the spark to get other people interested in saying, hey, you know, I've got an aviation business. I don't need much office space. I'd like to be there too. And I could start the whole trend, and we can fill up the airport terminal, hopefully, and
Sure. Okay,
go from
good.
there.
Well, listen, thanks so much for being here. We
Well,
really
it's been a
appreciate
pleasure,
it.
and I really
It's
appreciate
been
it.
fascinating, and you know, continued best of luck out there, and
Thank you.
happy holidays to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah.
we look forward to having you back in the future sometime.
Great.
So.
Thank
We're
you.
going to take a very short break. When we come back, we've got a couple of special guests lined up, and we're going to do something kind of special, I think. So we'll be right back.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. the Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have
Right.
beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. As we tape this, there's only a couple of weeks left in 2008, and so we thought we'd bring in an old friend, Miles Maguire. Not old as in chronological, just aren't we all? And Ronald Kane Hardy is here, and we're going to be kind of talking about some of the events of 2008 and kind of peeking into our little Eye on Oshkosh crystal ball for 2009, such that it is. So welcome. Thanks to both of you for
Thanks
being
for
here.
coming.
and
Thanks
for having
taking
us.
time out of your holiday shopping to come down here. So. Well, Dan was good enough to put together a list here of categories, and
Not too creative, but so we just kind of want to go around, and we only have a half hour, so we just want some ideas, top stories for 2008 to start with. So I think we should start with our guests. Don't
All
you think?
right, sounds good.
So give us a couple.
Well, I think one of the top stories was the flood.
Yep.
Okay.
Both the incident itself plus what it said about the city. The fact that many of our fellow citizens are apparently running their sump pumps illegally. The city's having trouble doing construction.
Yep.
And clearly our sewage and waste or freshwater runoff systems are somehow intertwined.
Yep.
You know, and that's a problem that's been there for a long time, and it's costing us a lot of money.
Different
That
issue than sidewalks in your neighborhood last year. Right?
Likely, yes. Not entirely sure, but I think
Not only is it costing us a lot of money, but it's going to cost a lot of money to get us out of that mess too.
yes, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. I think that really was an important story for the year. And Ron, you have anything?
That was the top one on my list.
Was it?
And not just the flooding and all of its impact and what it says about the infrastructure of the city, but just the weather in general. I mean, if you remember back to last January, February, March, the snowfalls that we had, where people had essentially just given up on shoveling, it had gotten so bad, combined with the flooding and the snow we're looking at now. And does anybody remember summer? I don't think the temperature got over 85 last summer.
We didn't have a 90 last summer, I don't think.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's telling.
Yeah.
and 77 inches of snow, I think,
Yes.
is what we had last winter. You know, going into into 08. So, Miles, you had said that the flooding was one of them. Did you have another one?
Well,
that was
I
kind
think
of
the other one obviously is sort of the changeover at the top of the political or governmental structures that we have here. It's interesting that we said the flood as opposed to the fact that we have a new city manager and an interim school superintendent.
Yeah.
But I think those changeovers, and I guess the school changeover is still in the middle of happening. It sort of suggests that maybe changing people at the top is not really the solution to our problems. I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's more continuity in changing than there is a natural disaster, too. I mean, there's more change with a natural disaster than there's just continuing a superintendent or another city manager.
Right.
Yeah. What have you got for another choice? You said that was your top choice. Do you have choice 2 or 3?
Well, I mean, there's a few other things I thought I'd leave for later on the list.
Ooh.
Ooh.
But I agree.
Yeah.
In respect to the leadership changes, the way the leadership responds to the
Okay.
natural disasters is also very.
Okay.
We'll see where that goes.
Right.
And if we hit another flood next year, you know.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
Well, the way the weather's changing.
Cheryl, you have any others for?
No, what we talked about, the flooding, I thought
Yeah.
was probably the biggest and most important, because it affected pretty much everybody in town, whether directly or indirectly.
Yeah. And it's not really clear that anything has been done or that anybody recognizes what needs to be done.
Right.
And so
I think they know that there's problems,
Right. Right.
but, trying to get to the point of fixing those problems.
and the consensus of, either the cost or just the citizen cooperation to rerun their sump lines.
Yeah.
I'd throw one other one out just for, Oshkosh goes Democrat for the legislative seats, obviously for the presidential, except for one area around West Haven. That may be something that will continue. But for me, living 11 years here, that's the first that I can remember that it's been a total switch. And whether that'll continue or not, I don't know. But it seemed to me that was potentially something that this year was the beginning of a longer trend.
Now, did every ward except a couple go for Obama?
Yes,
then?
except the West Haven area. Yeah. So I would throw that out.
They didn't go Democratic, though, for Carol Ressler's seat.
Well, but they did here.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, not overall.
No.
It didn't happen.
Throw out Dodge
So,
County and she wins,
yeah.
but certainly, Winnebago County and Oshkosh.
Yeah.
Was, do we have any person or persons of the year we want to anoint?
That's kind of a stumper.
Is it?
I thought so.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think Ron had an answer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're, if there were a politician, it would be your obvious, like somebody that really stood out, or I just felt like I didn't see anybody like that out there that really rose above expectations or shot out as so I went off the politics, and
Good.
there are two people that I thought of. One is Jim Vandehey, who was a UW-Oshkosh student and went on to found the Politico site, which had a major impact with the election, with election coverage, and also has a lot to do with the changing face of media. I hope I'm not stealing your.
No, and
that's
he
your
was
area.
honored at.
Right.
Wasn't he here?
Commencement, yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
got the
And
Chancellor's
then
medallion.
the other person that I think really stands out for me is Candy Pearson of Apple Blossom Books. She's shown that a small locally owned business can survive and thrive downtown Oshkosh, and the connections she's built with both the public library, with reading programs, bringing in authors, with the university, with the Women's Center on the university campus. I think she's really worked to raise the culture of the book in Oshkosh, and I think that it's if we didn't have that, I think that it would be too bad. And I think she's really stepped up and had an impact.
Those are creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of stepping up, I did pick someone kind of from the political realm. He's not a politician per se, but I thought that, John Fitzpatrick stepping into a really difficult role when we lost our city manager. He was faced with a budget right off the bat that was not a very pleasant budget to deal with and put together. He had to deal with flooding issues almost immediately, it seemed. And he did a nice State of the City program, much nicer, I thought, this year than what we saw from our former city manager, Dick Wollink. And just, while he didn't get picked for the city manager job in the long run, I thought that he did a really nice job
true. That's a good
stepping
point.
into that role, especially when he was still doing his other job within the personnel department. And then Police Chief Scott Groyle, I think, taking over the reins from retired Chief Erickson, and really with his community policing and things like that, I just think he's really done a very commendable job in his first year. I don't even know if it's a full year yet, but
I think of all of the city people we've had on in the last year, I think Scott probably has impressed me the most in terms of presentation, preparedness, openness. He's a really engaging chief of police person. He makes you feel comfortable. You meet
and
him
he's
on
very
this.
hands-on.
He is, incredibly. And the community policing thing, I think, is, 2 years ago down at what's the July thing down in the park?
Sawdust Days?
Yeah, it was a disaster. This year he put, policemen on bikes, and they walked around, and they talked to people, and there was just no problems this year. So I give him high grades as a...
Yeah, I see him as very hands-on without being heavy-handed.
Yep.
And, his officers underneath him just think the world and all of him, and I just think that he's definitely one of the people on the top of my list.
Well, the next one I picked was bright spots. I suppose that could be person or persons of the year, too. But any of you have any bright spots that kind of shined in 2008 that you want to throw out?
Jump out at?
Yeah. Ron is
I suppose the
smiling.
bad joke is that the holiday lights down at Menominee Park would be a bright spot in town right now, literally.
Yeah,
bright
yeah.
lights,
Yeah, and it gets bigger
Terrible
and brighter
joke.
every year. Yeah.
Lights on the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's bright.
Hold on.
But I guess with bright spots for the town,
Yeah.
I think there was the filming for Public Enemies, was that?
Yes.
I think that was something that was pretty impressive, really brought a lot of people to town,
Yeah.
brought the town together, brought a lot of focus to downtown. I thought that was something kind of special.
Sure. Yeah.
Miles, you got anything?
I think the lights are,
Yeah.
particularly I was thinking
Oh,
about
that's-
the
yeah.
bridge finally being open,
Yeah.
but then I was thinking, but it wasn't open on time. And
Yeah.
And then it wasn't tested when it did open. They had to test it after it
Right,
opened.
so, yeah.
Did you have anything, Dave?
I have a couple. I thought Betty Lang, the interim superintendent of schools, was a bright spot. They couldn't find a superintendent. They found one, and the person turned it down, and she sort of came in. And we've had her on the... I found her just to be very pleasant, articulating. I thought she was a short-term bright spot. And the other one was Parkview. That is an incredible place. And I think that really, for the elderly and for the county, I thought that was a bright spot for 2008.
Okay, good.
Next one is duds.
Okay.
We got
who
bright
wants to start
spots, we got to
there?
have duds. Anybody have any duds?
Well, there's a big plot of land down on the waterfront that
Yeah.
is still a big plot of land
Yeah.
down on the waterfront.
It's a pretty big dud, isn't it?
It is a very big dud. It's a very
Yeah.
serious dud,
Yeah,
too.
it is.
And it may stay a dud, given the state of the economy,
Yeah.
for quite a while.
Anything else?
It's duddish
That's
enough.
That's a...
duddish enough, Miles says.
Yeah.
Enough of a downer.
Ron, what about you?
Yeah, I would have to say, and I'm going back a little ways to last spring, that I think the fact that there was no competitive race for the Common Council last spring was a dud in my book. I think that the competitive elections brings out new ideas. Actually, people challenge each other, and a lot of discourse about what direction the city should go comes out through those elections. With the armchair quarterbacks as well as with the candidates themselves. And with no competitive election, I think that, to me, that was a dud. I think basically what that meant was that we were content with the way things were and with the people in office at that time.
Either content or perhaps burned out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think one of the duds, besides the things that we've already heard, the school district and some of the things that have happened or lack thereof, I guess,
Plans A through L, or?
Well, yeah, you name it.
Yeah.
I mean, and, continually changing based upon what group of people come to the meeting and are kind of screaming the loudest, it seems. It just, it seems to me like, and we've said this on the show before when we've had school board members on, it seems that the plan that they put forth and recommended first should have, and probably was, their best hope for doing some restructuring of the school district, if you will. And when that started to fall apart because certain people didn't want their children changing schools, then they switched to this plan and this plan and this plan, and before you know it, nothing got done. And, it was only last night, as we taped this show, that they finally decided on a site for a new school. So, I mean, it's taken forever, it seems, to get one single decision made. And, you can point fingers in any direction as to whose fault that is, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, the school board didn't make decisions until just recently, and that's just one decision that they've made. So I thought that was a kind of a big dud.
Well, we got Christmas coming. What do we do for surprises for 2008? Any surprises? Things that we didn't expect.
Oh, left to happen, or surprises over the year?
Surprises over the year. What? It's an essay you can go anyway.
Well, I'll say one surprise is that between Sawdust Days and Country USA, no shots were fired.
Oh.
Nobody was stabbed.
Right.
In fact, I don't think anybody died at all. Murdered. I thought that was kind of surprising. Given the history.
Yeah. Miles,
I don't know that I have any surprises. Do you got any surprises?
No, I really wasn't too
I'm
surprised.
going to be really.
By
You're going to throw me off on this
Oh,
one.
boy.
I think the biggest surprise of 2008 was that Paul Essling, who was going to run for mayor. Had to be the best kept secret in Oshkosh.
Oh
right?
yeah, right. Not even close.
However, I think you could say that Brian Bain not running.
Okay.
For
Somewhat a
re-election
surprise.
is a
Yeah,
surprise.
yeah.
That caught me off guard. That caught me off guard.
John Daggett running for 3 offices again didn't surprise anything?
That would be not necessarily a dud, but kind of a dull spot, I think, as opposed to a bright spot. Because, let's face it, he keeps trying, and you got to appreciate his efforts for trying, but I know we've been very frustrated when we've had him on the show because you ask him a question and he doesn't, he just rambles with all this other stuff. He doesn't answer questions, and how can you possibly take someone like that seriously? And now he's running for all these offices yet again.
I don't think you can take him seriously anymore. I think
But you were telling me something interesting, is that if he successfully gets on the ballot and someone else gets on the ballot for county executive, was it, that he could force a primary?
Without knowing the total number that are filing for common council and for school board, but if those 3 file for county executive, that alone would require a primary election at a cost of $12,000, $13,000. So maybe there'll be enough candidates for school board, but it has to be 7 or more for both common council and school board because there are 3 seats open on each. You say. So,
Could be an interesting,
Could be interesting,
primary
yeah,
election.
yeah.
So.
Well, disappointments that we've kind of got duds and stuff. Anyone have any disappointments about 2008 that you want to?
Well,
Go ahead, Ron.
I'll have to. I have
wanna
to
go
say
back?
the Energy and Environment Board. I would call a disappointment for 2008.
And you've been on that.
And
or
I've
you're
been on that
Okay.
board the whole year, so I guess I'm doubly disappointed. I think it's that had a lot of potential, and it still does have potential, but it has not been able to get things going. It is net. I think there's been some roadblocks, there's been some challenges, and a real lack of direction and a lack of focus. That might change in 2009, but for me, I think that's a big disappointment.
Do you want to stay on the board for?
That's a
2000?
very good question.
Uh-huh.
That's a very good question. I mean, I think I'm on there for 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
but it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's a frustrating.
We had
frustrating
Tony
board.
Palmieri on here a week or 2 ago, and we kind of got into it a little bit. I noticed the last meeting, it looked like the Plan Commission had taken over your committee, and I could just sense the tension and frustration. You may not want to expand on that, but clearly people have scared City Hall where they're sending in the heavy hitters to kind of regulate you people or take you over, or
Sure. Well, I will say that to look at the bright side of that coin,
Okay.
the city is putting resources towards this
Okay.
through personnel, through time. So whether that's good or
Yeah.
bad,
Okay.
A disappointment for me is that the leach is still, I think, underutilized. It's a beautiful facility, and it's just, there's a piece missing to figure out how to make it work.
And they kind of just hung the parks out for 1 year to see. I think there's some concern and nervousness that might not work too well this coming summer either. Huh? Yeah.
Well, and I think, just as we're talking about the riverfront as a whole and so forth, I think the Supley's kind of pulling out of this last deal on the riverfront was a disappointment. And, not knowing the intricate reasons as to why they pulled out, I thought that they were probably one of our best shots at getting something successfully going down there, and it was disappointing to see them pull out, especially only a week after they'd been in front of the Plan Commission, you know, talking about why certain things were needed for this, that, and the other. So that was a disappointment.
And that does actually, to go back to bright spots for a second, while we're talking about Riverfront, Beckett's, the new restaurant, opening, you know, in the old mall there. So it's a nice place. It's reasonable pricing, and it's another attraction and another indication that, you know, the river is the main resource that the city has, and that if we can get going on it, we can really do something.
Not to embarrass either of you, but one disappointment for me for this year is you both don't have your blogs. I thought they were good, and I'm just, you know, I'm sure that you have all sorts of reasons and no criticism, but for me, I liked your double photos that you had part of the year. I thought those were very clever. And Ron just was insightful with a lot of commentary and things, and I missed those two. That was a disappointment.
Well, maybe they'll come back.
Yeah,
Who knows,
yeah.
you know.
I still stand that the Northwestern killed the blogs.
Yeah.
And they're doing great things there.
Well, and that brings up another bright spot. I mean, you know, say what you will about the Northwestern, they have done a lot of incredible things, and now they're even doing this, what's it called, morning rush kind of thing, where Alex Hummel is on there. It's almost like they kind of want to get into radio or TV, you know, but they're doing a lot of innovative type things, interactive and things like that. I know last night they had the reporter at the school board meeting doing a live blog as the vote was taken on the proposed school location and so forth. And so I think that's kind of a bright spot.
But they're doing some really innovative things there, and I think when we looked at some other potential online avenues for local issues, everything we started to think of the Northwestern was doing or started to do, and they've got the resources and they've got the time and the staff, and
that is what they do, and for the rest of us, it's you know.
I understand, absolutely.
I think what's going to be interesting to see, just to jump ahead a little bit to next year,
please do.
is, you know, Gannett continues to struggle, and they're expecting another 10% reduction in force in all their community newspapers. So the fact that the independent blogs are sort of in a bit of a hiatus, that you know, that may end. So there may be an opening. Who knows? We'll see.
What do you think the futures of I mean, it's just not Gannett. It's L.A. Times filed for bankruptcy, didn't they? Was the Tribune or
the Tribune, the whole Tribune.
The whole, I mean, what you know, you teach journalism. What do you see in the future?
Well, I think the next year is going to be messy. You know, one of Gannett's big properties went to this 3-day-a-week publishing schedule in Detroit.
The Detroit paper,
And there's some speculation that the community papers will do that too. So you could see the Northwestern and other papers just coming out 3 days a week. And I think that's really going to change. I think that the newspaper is a reading habit, and if you break that habit, you're not going to get it back. So people are going to be more online. And the problem from a newspaper standpoint is that you simply cannot capture the online revenues that you can in print. And part of the problem is that your advertisers, they have equal access to the web as you do. And so that they can go out there and they can do their marketing and their promotion at a fraction of the cost of what you're going to charge them. So it's an ugly downward spiral, and it'll hit bottom at some point and it'll bounce back up. But I don't know what that point is, and I don't know what the bounce back is going to look like, to be honest.
That's a tough one. Let's just, what do you think for 2009? Just, you know, we don't have a lot of time. What issues do you think, looking forward, you think will drive 2009? Or what issues are you interested in 2009? You want to talk about a bit?
I think the economy is going to be a driving force, both locally and state and national. I think sometimes it just seems like we're just right on the edge of layoffs and closings. I mean, it could happen at any time. You never know, and it just feels, I think when people get nervous like that, I think that starts to impact people's buying behaviors, and I think the economy is going to be a major driving force. There could be a change with that if this new bailout plan for for the rest of us, I guess. That could have an impact. Infrastructure, they're talking about schools, all things that Oshkosh could use. You know, are we going to get some of that Obama money?
Yeah. I think we will. I don't know that it'll be enough. I think the economic problems are deeper and more intricate than we really want to know. But I think there could be a different kind of Obama effect. I think if we look at this city and we look at the differences of opinion on the school board and the Common Council, I think unfortunately they have been exaggerated in recent years because at the national level there has been such an emphasis on division. And so I'm hoping that, and Obama seems to be doing some of this, you know, trying to pull Republicans into the cabinet, moderates and so forth, and trying to set a different tone, you know, maybe a national tone that says, you know, we can disagree on a lot of things, but where we agree, let's work together and see if we can make progress. My hope would be that that would filter down to the local level.
Will there be a school referendum in 2009?
Well, it looks like they're going forward with that, you know, with a 3-part referendum, you know, with a new school, and 2 other referendums asking for deferred maintenance and other smaller remodeling.
We started with the economy in 2009. What will a referendum pass in April, considering the economy?
Well, I think, you know, part of it does have to do with what the national stimulus plan, you know, as Ron said, that there is education money being talked about in there, and, you know, possibly there could be some money to make school construction happen.
They are talking construction. I mean,
You're right.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Timing is really, I mean, there's a certain time point where the school board has to put it on the ballot or not. And, yeah, I mean, technically they could put it on a spring primary ballot if they wanted to.
The February, if there was one.
If they wanted to,
Yeah.
I think they could. But
They could.
it would be more natural to put on the April referendum.
Higher turnout, I think, is what they're looking for in part.
But I don't think for that kind of the stimulus money coming in, I don't think they can wait to see if they're getting any to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there'll be one, but if they don't get their act together pretty soon, it's going to fall just on lack of preparation time. I mean, it may fail anyway, but I think it'll just fall off the charts completely if they don't start getting their preparation in gear here. I mean, when we started talking to them, Dan, we were talking in terms of, you know, 6 months minimum for them to prepare and do a campaign. And now we're almost, you know, we're mid-December right now, and nothing's going to happen yet this year, probably. So, you know, that gives them about 3 months to really put something together.
I assume the 5-2 vote last night, there'll be a 5-2 vote to go with the referendum. I sense those 2 people there more or less said that last night, that I don't think they want a referendum. So 5-2 isn't bad. They're not going to get all, but it seems that those 5 are ready to go with it.
I think you also, related to the amount of time you have, if you're going to put a referendum up there and if they're going to try to sell it, you know, there's the time thing, but then there's also the perception of enthusiasm for it. Last night you heard a lot of questions, but well, it's not the best, but it's preferable to our other options. Now, if you're looking to buy a house for $15 million, it's like, well, this place is okay. I mean, that's a lot of money for something that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you think the multiple choice for a referendum is a wise idea? And, you know, you pick one and drop the other 2. You put your best choice second.
They're going to go with multiples. That's what they're going to do, no matter what we say at this table.
you're
So
right.
we are out of time.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much
Thanks
for being
for
here.
coming.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, and have happy holidays.
Thank you.
Same to you.
And that'll do it for us. Have a very happy holiday season, and we'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.